Good morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Moss again here at allpointstv.com. Also, WFOV 92.1, your radio dial. We're over there on that particular network on Saturdays at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. We are preceded by the program called Whose Opinion Is It Anyway? That is, in fact, hosted by two of my really good friends, Candace and Victor. And they do a wonderful job over there, and we're very glad to be able to follow a program of that particular worth on network that's doing an excellent job. I want to always give credit to those who've made that program possible, and that's, of course, those who sponsor the program at the Odyssey House, and also the great visionary. I always want to give Paul Herring credit, because without his vision, that studio would not exist. And also over here at this particular studio, allpointstv.com, without the vision of people like John Wilson and others here that do the lights and the sound, without their involvement and participation, we would not be able to do this program. So I want to definitely give them credit, although they don't come before the scene and let you see them. I can assure you that without their input and without their participation in the background, then this program will not be possible, nor the other programs that you're seeing on this network and hearing on 92.1. Well, we come to you today, and we are almost in mourning here at the studio because of what's happening in our country based upon the lack of political will in the nation's capital. You know, I think we can now say without any fear of being contradicted that we are surrounded by two political parties, both of them inept, incompetent, and ill serving the American people. And that's not just the Democratic Party or the Republican parties, both of them, and practically all the politicians in the nation's capital that are part of the problem. You know, I never thought I would come to before the viewers here at allpointstv.com and have such a pessimistic view of what is happening in this country. You try to maintain a certain amount of optimism, but given what's happening in the United States at this present time, I'm not so sure that the viability of this country can be sustained if we continue going down the road we're going down, because we're being sabotaged from within by the political leaders of this country. And this invasion from the outside that we're now seeing in what is called a caravan. There's a caravan, not an invasion, it's a caravan that is trying to reach our shores and will be here within a matter of days. And this term that is a caravan rather than an invasion is designed to make it appear that the situation is not as dire as it actually is. I mean, what do they have to do in order to make the case clear before the American people that this is invasion? Is it that they will bring guns our shores and then invade, then come in with guns hoisted, aimed at the people that are at our borders? Or can we recognize as an invasion when you have persons coming here at this in these numbers, none of whom have gone through the protocols established by a sovereign nation, and I'm not even sure we're sovereign anymore, but coming through borders of their own creation and not going through the port of entry, but creating a port of entry that they want to ascribe to, and the rules of the country, you know, be damned. And then they've had some projections in that group that's coming toward the United States, going through various countries to get here. Have people in that group that are saying that they don't care what the president says. Donald Trump can have all the objections he wants. They're coming in here anyway, regardless as to what the positions are of the country. And I don't know of another country in the world where anyone would dare take that position that they're coming in, despite the views of the person leading those countries. You think you can do that in North Korea, Well, Kim Jong-un, say what you want to about him. You're not going to put a foot or toe in North Korea without the permission of the government, and you might have some problems if they allow you in there, and after you arrive, you then do some things that's outside of the boundaries of what they expect you to do once you arrive in the country. You would have some problems there.
Well, I had a girlfriend, an ex-girlfriend now. She had a family member that sought out a different cancer treatment that didn't allow in the United States, and they sought it down there in Mexico. Well, it didn't seem to end up too well because he passed away. The family had to pay the Mexican government $10,000 to get the body released back to them so they could bury it. $10,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, the person who was coming there, he was not an invader. He was coming there as basically going to a medical practice, and because he was seeking out something our own government wanted, which I think that's another side issue, but why we don't allow people to seek out stuff that might be considered unorthodox, and if it's their life they're risking, why aren't they allowed to do that? But anyway, $10,000. So to get the body back from Mexican government because it's so rife with corruption, and that's exactly what they're exporting, wanting to import here. They want to bring that same mentality here. They haven't learned their lesson. The government's been totally corrupted since the beginning. Ours is too, but we still get some stuff done. But nothing gets done in these other countries where the corruption's so rampant. I mean, ours is a different type of corruption. It's still corruption, but it's still stuff does in the main gets done. But yeah, I mean, they want to export that to here. Why would we embrace that? I don't really understand.
We wouldn't embrace it if we had politicians whose basic interest was the viability of the country and respect for the sovereignty of the United States. If they were really serious about the borders of this country and also the rules that are established for this country's operation, if they really were sincere about that, this would not be a problem. But it's because they're not serious. And I think that what we were saying before we went on the air, I want to share that with the listeners. I think what you were saying earlier, before we begin to tape this program, is true. Both parties benefit from this immigration chaos. The Democratic Party benefits because obviously they want to grow their numbers, since they cannot convince the American people to vote for them based upon the agenda, really a lack of agenda, on the part of the Democratic Party. What is the agenda of the Democratic Party? It's undefined. We see them pointing fingers. We don't see them laying out a vision for the country. So they benefit by bringing in persons that will cater to and buy into the Democratic Party's lack of ideals, the fact they want big government, they want more power centralized in the country, and they want socialism, which interestingly enough, these persons coming here are fleeing from, yet carrying the flag of the country that they're fleeing from. And then the Republican Party benefits also. The Republican Party benefits because just like the Democrats are using immigration to gin up its base, the Republican Party can in fact use the immigration chaos to gin up the base of the Republican Party. So one is ginning up his base by bringing the immigrants in, and then of course the pushback on that gins up the support of the Democrats, the ones in the Democratic Party. They're not Democrats; they are people in the Democratic Party. In the Democratic Party, not Democratic, but Democrat Party, which Donald Trump is now beginning to promote. The idea is a Democrat Party, not a Democratic Party, which is a mild distinction between those two. And they benefit, obviously, by the immigration, but the Republican Party benefits from it also because it has people, and I'm convinced that they don't want the party, they don't want the country united. They both benefit from the division in the country. So the Republican Party benefits because it can have pushback on the immigration, and then the Democratic Party will be more inviting of the immigrants. So you have these two visions clashing with each other, and you have some on this part of the divide, some on the other side of the divide, and they're clashing with each other. And in the division, both parties gain something from it. They don't want this country. They don't want this country united. And the ones who are dividing this country first and foremost are these reckless, irresponsible, representative, politicians in the nation's capital. This is insane. They say the caravan, and that's their word for it. I don't know how you can have a caravan coming into a country that's not invited. I mean, can we think of some more fitting terms of people that would come into the country after they decide upon their own they're going to come to the United States? They call them a caravan. Can we call them what they are? These are invaders. And just because they don't have guns, I guess if they had guns and all of that, you can see they are invading the country. But because they don't have guns, does not make them any less of an invader of the United States. If they come in here without an invitation, and they're coming here, and the numbers are coming here, they're saying now that the numbers have grown from an initial beginning point of 4,000. They're now saying 14,000 have joined them. And as they come further north, I don't know what the numbers will be when they finally get to the borders, but whatever the numbers are, this isn't. These people have not been invited. We have 27 ports of entry, and they're not using any of them. They are in fact carving out another port of entry of their own making, and they're saying to us, thumbing their nose at us first of all, and they're saying to us, they don't care what the rules are. They're going to set up their own rules. And we're trying, in our leadership, I don't know where these people come from and how we can survive them if we don't stop this train from going out any further down this road, this track than has already been encountered. I don't know where this comes from, but they're trying to find how they're going to accommodate them once they arrive. And there's only one way to accommodate them after they arrive that makes any sense. And that's to do what Donald Trump is saying we need to do, and that's put our military at the borders and take a very hard line against their coming here without an invitation. They're not to be allowed into the country, and they're not to be allowed to be on the taxpayer's dime in terms of accommodating them in any tents or any places that are set up for their well-being once they arrive. We have got to take a hard line. They came here on their own without taxpayer money being spent, and we need to return them away and let them go back on their own. And I know we're going to have a lot of people, the outcry on the left is going to be, look at how they are treating these persons, how inhumane this is. But until you take a hard line against persons breaking this country, you're not going to be able to stop it. If they arrive on these shores as if they have a right to come in here, if we don't respect our own boundaries, then no one on the outside of this country is going to respect those boundaries. Now, we were talking about how other countries react. I don't know if you remember this one soldier that went down the wrong street on our borders, and he arrived, they have these lanes you go through, and he went down the wrong lane and arrived in Mexico and stepped into in Mexico without a visa, without an invitation, and they put him in jail. And he was languishing there until they negotiated for his release to come back to the United States, but they put him in jail for being illegally inside the country. And we want to accommodate them and put them on a path to citizenship. And that's been the position of both parties. People keep talking about President Reagan as if President Reagan was somehow the answer to anything in this country. Ronald Reagan is the first president to legalize, in the numbers that he did, all the ones that were here were put on a path to citizenship. Can you tell me how that will discourage the next wave, and what does that do to the next wave? If you allow people to break into the country, and the response to it is to put them on a path to citizenship, what are you doing to the ones that have yet to get in a quote-unquote caravan and come and then arrive on the shores of the United States? What are you saying to them? They can do the same thing, and that's what we're doing. And then the other side of it is what Ann Coulter was saying last night. Ann Coulter has written very clearly about this issue. And she said on the program, the next revolution will be televised, taken from, the program takes from Gil Scott Heron. The revolution will not be televised. That program is called The Next Revolution Will Be Televised. Well, we're seeing it on television right now, as a matter of fact. And Ann Coulter was on that program, and she said that there's a catch-22 here. If they stop, see, the other side is, if they stop this caravan, then people like Ann Coulter are going to raise a question. If they stop this caravan, then why didn't they do that 6 caravans earlier? I mean, why did they stop this one and then stop the others? So the politicians are in a quagmire here. If they respond to the latest invasion, the question is, why did they let this get off the ground in the first place? Either one's an indictment against these politicians. And they're not representing the American people in either party. And that much is clear. We're not being represented by the Democratic Party, and the people in this country are not being represented by the Republican Party. And it's too bad that both of them cannot lose. Again, Ann Coulter. I read everything Ann Coulter writes, by the way. All of her books have been right on point. The book called Mug, for example, it's a brilliant book. And it's talking about how, we've been mugged. We've been mugged by our government, by our political leaders. And Coulter was saying that this invasion of this country comes from the fact that the politicians do not have the political will to protect the American people, because they're not really the representatives of this country. They're representing their own interests. Neither party takes a firm stand against immigration because they're afraid of the political outcome. If they take a stand, either way, they are afraid of the outcome, to which it hurts their bottom line. And the bottom line for all politicians, and this is without exception, is for them to get elected to power. This is not about representing the American people. This is about power. And both political parties want power to accrue to their particular party because they want the power in their hands to be over the American people so that they can benefit. And they benefit from it because they're able to control the purse strings. He and she who controls the power controls the money. This is a money thing. It's a power thing. It's not about the territorial integrity of the United States. And when we understand that, we'll understand what's being written by such officials, such writers as James Bennett and Thomas DeLorenzo in their book called Official Lies. The subtitle of the book is How Washington Misleads Us. And Washington misleads us on everything. You know what's amazing to me? What's really amazing to me is that after all of this history that we have in this country, starting with the second administration that this country had in Washington, that was, Jefferson, the first one in Washington, but the second administration on the federal level, the administration of John Adams, it is amazing to me that after all of this history in the post-George Washington era, that we have people still believing anything these politicians say. I mean, Official Lies, How Washington Misleads Us, is not something that just happened just the other day. This stuff has been going on ever since the country was founded, after the first administration. George Washington is singularly the standout politician in Washington as far as the president is concerned. The rest of these hacks, you can take them and just forget about that, because none of them have been great. None. And you can have these parrots talking about Abraham Lincoln, and all of them got him up there at the top because that's what they are. They're parrots. One says it, and everybody then falls in line and finds a way in order to accommodate the idea of the people that they're parroting. And now everybody got Abraham Lincoln as our greatest president. Abraham Lincoln is nowhere near being great. And this idea of him, great in the sense that they're talking about, although the word great in terms of the way it's used in history is great because the leaders that are great, the Attilas, that's who Ayn Rand calls them, Attila. All political leaders are Attila, and some are worse than others. They're called great in history because they killed a lot of people. Alexander the Great, Constantine the Great, Catherine the Great, Peter the Great. All these persons that got the great behind their name. You can call Hannibal great. Hannibal the Great, although he's never been called great because the killing was going in the opposite direction.
Did you ever see that on History Channel? They had they rated the leaders of the world like on a degree of psychopathy. They're being psychopaths, and one was like totally psychopathic, and this other one wasn't because they only use power. And then but like George Carlin said too, though. Like you said about the lifestyle thing. If you go by the lifestyle thing, like you have an active lifestyle. Genghis Khan would be considered to have an active outdoor lifestyle. That's what it is. You can turn it that way. He had an active outdoor lifestyle. He was a brutal tyrant, but and vicious and conqueror, but. That's what you could recapsulate, you could refocus that, repackage it to he just simply had an active outdoor lifestyle.
John, these persons, they wear the skies today, and they are so good that they allow us to go to the polls and vote for them. And by the way, only vote for them, which we didn't do in 2016. We voted for Donald Trump, and that was not them, and that's why they're so upset, because we went outside the box. And we brought an outsider into the insider's game. Let's say it a little bit more clear than that. We brought an outsider into the club, and he's not supposed to be in the club, and they want him out of the club. And that's all this fighting that's going on is because of that. But Attila, and that's who they are. Ayn Rand, in a book called For the New Intellectuals. For the New Intellectual. Identifies the political leaders throughout history as Attila. And when I called them that on a recent radio program, one of the person that's on this panel, I have a lot of respect for him, by the way, and this is not a criticism but a critique, meaning that I'm just simply analyzing the conversation, but I certainly don't have anything to say that would be critical of the person who I have a lot of respect for. I have a lot of respect for his ideas and a lot of respect for what he says. But they were surprised on this panel when I said that they are Attila. And he said, Attila, as if that was too much, that went too far beyond the pale to be calling them that because these people are elected officials. Yes, they let you elect them. So in this country here, we elect our dictators. If you think these people are not Attila because you elect them, then I tell you what you can do, what you shouldn't do, by the way, is defy them when they, in fact, say something is the order of the day, which you have no input into, and you defy that as the way you're going to respond, because you have your own sovereignty, and the law, which is the law of the land, the Constitution, does not allow them to invade into that particular space and make those decisions that are unconstitutional based upon your own understanding of what's in black and white. And you're going to therefore follow the Constitution and not the mandate of Attila and see what happens. We didn't have an income tax in this country until Attila changed. They weren't allowed to have direct taxes in this country by the federal government. Only the states could do it up until 1913. So from 1788, when the Constitution was ratified, up until 1913, you can count the number of years of what would be between those two periods. They could not impose direct taxes on the people in this country because the founders knew the power to tax is a power to destroy, or the power to tax is a power to enslave. And everyone in this country right now are the victims of what occurred with Attila, and that's Attila on the federal level and also Attila on the state level. See, don't forget now, that in 1913, when they passed the 16th Amendment, don't forget, that's the same year in which Attila, on the federal and state level, cooperating with each other, would have taken away the way in which we elect our senators in this country. We're going to take a break from this point with WFOV, and we'll see them on the other side of the break. And we're very glad to have all of you with us, and they'll be returning in 4 minutes, and we will be anxiously waiting for that to occur. We're going to continue what we're saying here, and I do call them Attila, and I know that's not a popular way of defining them, because we look at our representatives a little bit different in this country. But you know, if I've traveled in various countries, I've stayed in many of them for weeks at a time, 17 of them in Africa, but I've stayed in some of them just traveling through them and staying overnight in countries in Europe as well. Sometimes trapped in the countries because I couldn't get out because of the weather conditions. But just having a chance to talk to people while there and getting an understanding of the internal politics of those countries. And I can tell you that the political leadership anywhere on the globe, there's not an ounce of difference in the mindset of any of the politicians anywhere in the world. Now, some of them have to be a little more under the cover in terms of how they operate, but every last one of them in every government on this planet is Attila. And people think that these people in the political arena are actually representing the people's interests. That's a facade everywhere. Attila is Attila. And they do not represent the people over whom they're supposed to be sovereign. They represent their own political interests, and their interest is power. Let's put a period there. That's what they represent. If you think that the people represent the constituents, what country are we talking about? Not only what country are we talking about, what planet are we on? That is not, these people are disguised. And there's no place where they're better disguised than they are here. I mean, let me throw a question out here. I asked this once before. I said that when Obama, for example, and I'm not picking on Obama anymore, and I'm picking on these other politicians, Ronald Reagan also, and all these others. Look at how they covered up the coup d'etat that occurred in 1963. When they murdered the president and covered it up. That's Attila that did that. So look at Attila telling us, like when Barack Obama said, if you like your health care, you can keep your health care. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Now, we know he's lying because his lips were moving, right? That's Dr. Williams at Georgetown University. He says the way you can tell if a politician is lying is see if he's moving his lips. Okay, Obama's lips were moving. So if his lips are moving, then Obama, being a politician, was lying. But I'm not talking about that right now. I mean, when a politician is not lying, write it down. That's what they do. Stefan Melano, they lie, they lie, they lie. But get beyond the fact that he was lying and try to think about the voice in which Obama, when he said that, is speaking in. Or if you think I'm picking on Obama, okay, look at Donald Trump. Okay, I want to welcome WFOV back after that 4-minute break, and we're glad to have you back. We're still ranting and raving over here at WF, not only on the station WFOV, we are continuing what we're talking about here at allpointstv.com. And what I'm trying to get across here is get beyond the lying, because that's what politicians do. And if you think they're going to be different tomorrow than they are today, and you cannot understand this is historically rooted, embedded in the politics. Politics is the art of deception. That's what it is. It's not the art of compromise, because if it were that, they'd be compromising with the people that put them there, and you put them there. They don't compromise with you. They don't compromise. They don't compromise with anything other than when their self-interest cannot be secured by them going directly against the opposition to it, and they have to then accommodate the others that can block that ambition, and then they compromise in order to get to the goal, and it's only postponement of the goal. They still want to arrive at the destination. That's compromise they make. They do not compromise with the American people because they demand a force. Okay, Obama talked about you can keep your health care if you like your health care. And if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Or Donald Trump is now saying that he wants to do another tax cut. And he wants to give you back, listen to these words that they use, give you back more of your money. If you can't hear Attila in that, then the reason for that is that you have been made deaf in order not to be able to hear political speech by these politicians, that you can keep more of your money. I can keep more of my money if they allow me to keep more of my money. And the inverse of that then must be that if Attila says that I cannot keep more of my money, then that doesn't happen then. And that is Attila speaking. Because it should be assumed that in a free society, that a person that works for his own life, that in fact does the time, puts the time in to effect an outcome for his own betterment, to pursue his own happiness, which is found in the Declaration of Independence and also reinforced in the Constitution of the United States. If you are in fact securing your own right to your own life, and you are working toward the pursuit of your own happiness, then the question is, who can make a demand upon that pursuit in terms of you working to that end? And for the politicians to come behind that effort and say that you can keep what you work for, which is to say that if they will that to be the case, that will be the case, but if they will it to be otherwise, it will be otherwise. And so that's Attila speaking. But you don't hear Attila's voice, and you think that it's somewhat benign, and that these people are in fact benevolent in terms of telling you can keep that which you've earned. That's Attila that is speaking to you, and you can't even hear his voice. Because these people, the modern Attila, the man of force, and don't even forget the man of force and the woman of force, they're not the men of trade. They're the men of force because they control the weaponry. And what they say goes. And that's why the framers had the idea of holding them in abeyance, because once they get out from underneath the restraints placed upon them, then you're going to get Attila. I mean, they already Attila, but you get Attila expressing himself. And that's what we have right now. We have Attila that's out of the box, and that's everybody in Washington. And they've been uncovered. So when they send me, when they start sending you these questionnaires and asking you for your opinion, that's only to delude the American people into believing that they really are conscious of what your voice what your voice is out here, and what you say on those questionnaires and those surveys. They are in fact quantifying that, and they are going to take that in consideration and make sure that they understand the will of the American people, because that's how they roll. And that is not how they roll, and that's not how they're going to roll in the future. That's not what Attila does. Everything in America right now, and this is going to be the death knell of this country. If we don't understand this and get off this this treadmill, we on a train track, and we're heading down those tracks, and there's a train coming in the opposite direction, and we are walking toward that train, and the outcome is certain in terms of when the train comes down that track and we're walking toward it to our own detriment. It's obvious what's going to happen, and that's what we are doing right now. We are in fact walking down those tracks laid down by the politicians. and we're walking into a windmill of their own making. And if we don't get off this train track, the outcome is going to be the death knell of this country. We are committing suicide in America right now by following these politicians. And people think that you identify with this party or that party. That's so outrageous. I don't identify with either one of them because neither one of them represent what they say they represent. The Democrats do not represent the Democratic ideal, and the Republican Party does not represent the Republican ideal. If you can find a Republican ideal in the Republican Party, please, send me where I can find it. There are no Republicans in the Republican Party. I keep saying this over and over again. There are no Republicans in the Republican Party, and there are no Democrats. Those words mean something. There are no Democrats in the Democratic Party. They don't exist. In fact, go back and look at how the one party, which was the Democratic Republican Party, go and look at how that one party split into two parties and why they split, with the intermediary party being the Whig Party. So it used to be the Democratic Republican Party and then the Federalist Party. And then the Democratic Republican Party split, and it became the Democratic Party in 1828 under Andrew Jackson, and then the Whig Party in the interim, and then on the other side of the Whig Party in 1854, the Republican Party stood up as an independent party, divorced from the Democratic Party, and it stood up as the opposition party to the Democrat. Yet they were both at one time the same party. That's a game that's being run. I mean, it's a scam that there are two parties in this country. There is only one party, the incumbent party. And Donald Trump, you validated that, and that's why they're on your case. And you're probably finding that you have as much opposition in what is supposed to be your own party as you have from the Democrats. Both of them oppose you. It's because you weren't supposed to be a member of the club, and you're in there in the club as an outsider in the insider's game, and they don't want you there. And that's why the Republican Party controls the purse strings in the House, and they've not shut down Mueller. And have you noticed that they call everyone before the Congress, Comey, Bremer, the director of the DI, what's his name over there? I forget the DI's director's name, but this guy, they called him there. James Comey was called before the Congress to testify. They are trying to get the assistant attorney general there. He's telling them that he may or may not come, and they're issuing subpoenas, and he's saying that he's making up his mind whether he's going to testify or not, defying the Congress. Richards, I was trying to think of Richards' name. Richards over there in the director of intelligence, if you can call it that. And they're doing what they want to do because they recognize that Donald Trump is an outsider, and they don't care what Donald Trump says as President of the United States. Donald Trump was elected by the American people directly against their will, and therefore to them, because they didn't sanction it, Donald Trump is an illegitimate president because he elected by the American people. They went around the American elite and directly contacted the American people on Twitter and is using Twitter to communicate with the American people around CNN, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, and ABC, and to an extent Fox. He's going direct to the American people, and they don't like that. To connect up the politician as an outsider to the American people and beholden to them and not to the elite, that's a problem for them. And they have not accepted that. 2 years into this man's administration. And they're not going to accept it. They're talking about, if they get the numbers right now, they're talking about impeachment. Impeachment for what? Impeachment because they disagree with what happened in 2016. They don't agree with that. They don't agree that the American people had the right to make up his mind. It had told the American people how to vote. It told them that Donald Trump had no chance. And Donald Trump did have a chance because the American people did not believe them and went to the poll and did the unforgivable. And Attila has said no to it. Now you can say, well, it's a done deal. They're saying it's not a done deal. They're using the impeachment. They want to use the impeachment process to continue the election. The election outcome was something they disagree with. Therefore, the election is not over. It's not over until it's over. And it's not over until they say it's over. And that's why they're now talking about, if they get the numbers, they're going to bring about the impeachment of the verdict. See, it's not the impeachment of Donald Trump's administration. It's the impeachment of the verdict of the American people. This is in your face. That's who they are. I called them Attila on that program because that's who they are. And I recognize them behind the skies because I didn't just go and study them in terms of what occurred in 1788. In fact, what the Framers were trying to do was stop Attila because they were students of history. They were trying to stop Attila. They knew him in history. And they had studied where every society that was brought to its end, in Vonnet's writing, which was put out in the 18th century, called The Ruins of Empire. They studied what brought every one of those great empires to its end, and they found out what brought it to its end. What brought these empires to the end was Attila was over those empires. And Attila was serving his own interests and not the interests of the states that they were over. And Attila was in every society. And so therefore the end result was always a given at some point down the line. It was going to happen. It's going to happen here with Attila because that train is still coming down the track everywhere they are. It's amazing to me that people cannot see in the world that they are surrounded by Attila. And I don't know how they can't see it in Africa because Attila is unleashed there to a much larger extent in many of those African countries I've been in, where there's not any possibility of any freedom. And they can't all run over here. When they have this condition that, I'm not just talking about in Africa, I'm talking about all over the world, they just can't all run here where the producing class has more of leverage in the country than they have in other parts of the world. And that's the difference there. The only difference between America and these other countries is that there's more leverage of the traders in this country than there is the traders in other parts of the world. In other words, Attila, for a long time, because the framers had enough wherewithal to put restrictions in place to hold Attila off for a period of time. And in the 19th century, in particular, by Attila being held off in terms of laissez-faire, government leave us alone, the traders were able to get off the ground and produce wealth that was unparalleled anywhere in history. And once that was held in abeyance, Attila held in abeyance, then the producing class could become more prominent as the influence in society. But then what happened in the aftermath of that was Attila found out that his influence was in fact waning, and he wanted to get back in control. So what did Attila do? He began to put in the antitrust laws to restrict those persons that were the producing class. They made them the robber barons, by the way. The robber barons, the men of trade, the person that cannot coerce you to give them your money, they are the robber barons. And if that's not bad enough, they are the ones who are not paying their fair share of the treasure that Attila demands. They're saying they're not paying their fair share of taxes. So here's Attila demanding money that it has not made so that Attila can do with it what he wills to do with the money that's stolen. called taxes.
And Attila doesn't admit to the fact that he's the one. They are the ones that write up the tax code and gives these. They give them a certain little bit of leeway, and then they want to rein it in. Yeah, but they don't admit to the fact that they're the ones, juggling the books and changing and cooking the books, whatever, and And changing
that's smart now, John. Attila wants to make it seem like the rich aren't paying their fair share, and then they got the people out here who think that when they give a tax break, and the tax break is one in which the rich get tax money back, that they are somehow bribing the system, and that they are in fact taking advantage of the system. The fact of the matter is that the only ones paying tax in this country are the rich. I looked at that. I looked at those charts. Oh yeah, I see the charts out there. I read the charts very well. You look at those graphs sometimes. The bottom 20% not only do not pay any taxes, they have a positive benefit where they get back more money than what they pay. In other words, not only are they not taxed, but they get back more money than what they pay into the taxation before the money is returned to them. In other words, it's a transference of the wealth to the underclass. And why does that exist? It exists because the ones who are most likely to come up against the rulers are those who are most dispossessed with nothing to lose. So they tie them into the network. I'm talking about Attila here doing that. Tie them into the network so that the ones who have the most grievance against the status quo will be pacified, for example, through the tax structure. And they, in fact, are disinterested in the outcome of elections, by the way, because if they don't have to pay any taxes, who they care? What do they care about limited government? They care, what they want is big government, because it's not going to cost them anything one way or the other. But the rich are the ones that are paying all the taxes in the country. I didn't say half the taxes, paying all the taxes in the country. So it stands to reason that if the tax give back, which is giving back people their money, if there's a tax give back, it stands to reason through logic that if you're paying all the taxes, then any tax break is going to benefit the ones that's paying the taxes and not the ones that's not paying the taxes. And they got people believing out here, they're so brainwashed in this country, which is another problem we have, is that they think giving the people money back that falls in the hands of the rich is somehow the rich gaming the system. The people gaming the system is Attila. And they got people believing that the rich are gaming the system. The rich are not gaming the system because the rich are the ones that is in fact propping the system up. If they stop producing, America falls by the wayside tomorrow. You see the production, what Obama did was regulate the producing class into a non-viable situation. What Donald Trump did to reverse that was to, in fact, take the regulations off of the producing class and allow them to breed and to be able to create wealth beyond what had been created before, and that's what we're seeing right now. It's not the government doing anything other than getting off the producers' back. In other words, by creating more liberty, you create more wealth. In the absence of liberty, you create poverty. And Venezuela is the latest example of that. We don't have to go and reinvent the wheel. We just have to look at history. When America had the politicians in abeyance, America became the wealthiest nation the world has ever seen. And what Attila's covered up is why that wealth was produced. Not by anything the politicians did. It's what the politicians didn't do, which is set roadblocks up against the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts, and all the others of those persons that were producing, took the roadblocks, didn't set the roadblocks up against their creativity, and this country took off unparalleled. Now, the immigrants. The immigrants are coming here saying they seek asylum. And Attila, who wants to encourage this because it takes the limelight off of what Attila is and what Attila stands for, who these persons are. They are allowing this on both sides to drag out because it diverts the American people's attention away from the things that they're doing that in a very subtle way encourages this chaos that is taking place. And they're saying they come here to seek asylum. You know something? When you seek asylum, it means that there is a condition that is new, that has not prevailed in those countries, that something happened that changed the way the status quo is played out. For example, some fled the advent of communism, a new thing. They had freedom, communism in Europe, and they ran out of Europe to other parts of the world seeking asylum. Or in Germany, the Jews saw the Hitlerian government and they ran out of Germany because of the Holocaust, something new. Or the potato famine in 1845 in Ireland. The Irish began to run from the plague of the potato famine, something new, and they tried to relieve themselves of that problem because something new had happened on the soil of Ireland. Very understandable, change in the condition and so on and so forth. But that's how we see with these persons in these quote-unquote caravans. They're trying to get asylum from a condition in Latin America that's been in existence for 1,000 years. Ain't nothing different there. They got governments that are autocratic. They have authoritarian governments in Latin America, and now they decide that they can in fact flee that and go to a place where you have a welfare state. Now don't forget, before the welfare state, those conditions were there then. And they didn't run out of those countries then because that's how those governments are. And they're running here talking about they want asylum as if the conditions were created last week. Those conditions in Latin America have existed for ever since those countries were set up. Because when the colonialists left in Latin America and also in Africa, also in Asia, talking about China, the power fell in the hands of Attila. That's why those governments have not. That's why those countries have not developed, because when the colonialists left those other countries, unlike what happened here, when the power fell into the hands of the persons on the land space, it fell in the hands of Attila. And then what you have here is no development. Why? There's no liberty. Development does not take place in oppressive conditions because Attila would not allow the influence to be in the hands of the producers. And that's why Latin America, 1,000 years from here, unless they change that paradigm. And if America wanted to do a service to those countries, it would block them at the border for another reason. If those persons are the most dissatisfied ones in those countries, and they're fleeing the oppression in their country, they're the ones who are most prone to revolution in those countries, and they need to be there to do what George Washington and others did for this country, which is rise up against it and change it. By allowing them to flee from it, the chance of Attila being confronted in those countries is reduced by the number of persons leaving the country to escape it. Because they're not running from a potato famine, running from the rise of Hitler. Hitler's been there all along. And they want to run out as if this is a new condition, seeking asylum in this country. And these stupid leaders in America, both the Democrats and the Republicans, in both parties are the problem. We need to stop this noise about running from one to the other. We need to think about how we're going to get around both these parties, how we're going to neutralize these parties, how we're going to put a barrier around these politicians doing great harm to this country. Until we learn how to do that, we're going to go more and more out of control, and we're going to have less and less liberty to show for what the framers put in place here, because they're taking our liberty here also. We're losing our liberty in this country. America is no longer a free country. We're losing our liberty in America right now. And the idea of people coming to this country telling us that they don't care what our laws are, they're coming in here anyway, and they're trying to find a way to accommodate them once they arrive. Both parties need to be thrown out just based upon that factor alone. If we're not sovereign based upon the political leadership of this country, we're not a sovereign nation, then the politicians are the problem. Because the first thing that we have for setting government up is to secure liberty. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish a Constitution for the United States of America. And there's not one politician in Washington, D.C. that's carrying that out. We got to look at this situation, and we got to call the question right now, before going further down that track, that railroad track. We got to call the question right now: what are we going to do to sustain this country in the liberty, the little liberty that we have left? And that's a question of the day that we got to ask, because we're losing it, folks. We're losing our liberty in America, and we're losing our country, and Washington to blame for it. Okay, we got to get out of here. We'll see you again next week. We want you to follow your dream. Until next week, follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.